Hey everyone, I'm Caroline Rena from the Ride of My Life podcast, and things are interestingly moving in a direction I knew about. However, I've been resisting, and what that is talking to you about grief. And it doesn't have to be a negative subject, because what grief really does is it helps us to heal and go. As we are on our healing journey, we need grief to heal. If you haven't, grief and love go together, and it's important that we recognize that we wouldn't grieve if we didn't love. And it comes along with other people, with ourselves, with situations in our lives, with opportunities that come up. We need to grieve these things. And so over the past 10 days, I have been grieving a lot. I don't know if this is in preparation for the work I'm doing, because that's what it feels like. It hasn't been the easiest thing, but I'm noticing that it feels like it's part of the process. So I'm allowing it and I'm letting it happen. And this is something that I didn't do when I was younger, because I didn't know how to do it either. We are not really taught about grief. And the initial not teaching is the fact that a lot of us are told to hold our emotions in, and grieving involves emotions. It is an emotion in technically. And so when you hold emotions in, you're going to hold pain in. And when you hold pain in, you get stuck in your life. And we're so busy trying to find a way to get unstuck and move forward. And I see this on social media all the time, everywhere. I feel so stuck. I feel so stuck. Well, guess what? Your emotions are stuck. And when your emotions are stuck, you can't move forward. It's nearly impossible to do that fully, where you can continue to push them down and force yourself to move forward. But that's not what we're talking about here, because that's not self-love. That's not how you take care of yourself. You take care of yourself by healing these emotions, by healing the grief, by walking through the grief. And the other piece of this is that when we don't grieve and it stays stuck in our bodies, our bodies begin to have issues. Disease starts to show up. Disease, D-I-S-E-A-S-E. It starts to show up in our bodies because we're holding all of this grief and emotion inside of us. So there's the first part of it. The second part is that our society is so afraid of emotions and death and all of the things that surround grief, that we are taught as little children to start to push this down. So it becomes a habit. It becomes part of who we are, because no one taught us how to grieve. And if we don't grieve, it causes all kinds of problems in our lives, in our work, in our relationships, in our health. Everything is involved here. And so when we are taught to do things like push our grief down with food, like, let's go here. You tell a story. For example, I read this in a book the other day. This child comes home and he has this horrible experience at school being bullied. And he comes home and he's crying and he's telling his parents about this, and they're doing the best they can because they don't know how to support grief. And that's another thing that goes on. But they're doing the best they can to support him. But what they say to him is, oh, you can stop crying. It's okay. Here, have a cookie. So what happens to us as we get older from that cookie becomes food or chemical dependencies or shopping or, addictions to drama, codependency. It turns into all of those things because we were never allowed to release that feeling of sadness and pain and hurt and anger or shame or whatever it was that was coming up for us when we were little. So what happened, what you see what happens, you've probably experienced it in your life. So then on top of that, we're taught how to grieve through certain ways, which I'm going to share one, which never made sense to me because I never felt these things. And that's why I started looking into this. And what I'm talking about is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I don't know when she wrote this, but she wrote a book on the stages of grief. But the grief that she was talking about was not for the griever. The grief that she was referring to was for a person who was dying. So when you're dying, you go through this process of grieving the death. If you're in a situation where it is imminent and you're watching it happen, as a dying person, you go through the stages of denial and anger and bargaining and depression and acceptance. And then you're able to follow through the process. And I've seen that happen with people numerous times. They do that. That's exactly what they do. And it's so powerful for them. Now you can go through these stages as you're working through your healing. But that can be part of grieving, but it's not like the end all be all. Like if something happens in your life, like in mine, I talk about, a little bit about what happened with my kids, and I miss my kids, and they are beautifully alive, and I have a relationship with them now. But back in the day, parental alienation took that relationship away from us, and I had no idea how to grieve. I didn't know what that looked like to grieve for somebody who was still alive, because I thought that grief was only for death. That's what I was taught. Then, as I started to process everything, I recognized over the past couple of years, maybe even less than that it isn't just about someone dying. You don't grieve over someone dying. So I start to go through this. I'm about to lose a relationship. I've got all these things going on. And I'm like, well, I really don't feel like I'm in denial. I don't know. I mean, it's just happening. It's not something I was denying that was happening, so I kept questioning this and questioning it. And then I started to realize that it wasn't the actual process that a griever can use, because when you're a griever, it's different. Like I said, you can grieve loss and it'll come up here and there. At least this has been my experience. It'll come up here and there, and being able to just sit with the emotion, sit with the pain, sit with what's going on for you, whether it's a death, whether it's a loss, whether you've had a divorce, whether you've lost your job, whether you've lost your home, whether you've lost something that you wanted to happen so badly that it didn't happen. I mean, it can be all of these things. And interestingly, you're not just going to feel those things. You could feel anger. Sure, of course, if something happens, you may feel anger, but you may not. You may have already gone through accepting what was going on, but you might feel sad, and there's no sadness in this list. And you might feel shame, and you may not feel closure because you never got to have closure with the divorce or whatever, because it stopped your life, and it caused you to just put the brakes on and really try and figure out what's happening inside of you, what's going on, what caused the deep down causes of what happened. It teaches you to look inward, to find out the truth of who you are, and to understand this, and to find self-love. I mean, it's all there for a reason. We just, again, we don't know it. So you're also, let's see, anger, shame, oh, and of course fear. If you lose your job, what's the first thing that you're going to run into? If you're going to grieve losing your job, and you're going to have fear around that because you don't know what's coming next. So just, this is just something I wanted to bring up about what is grief really. And this is just beginning steps that I'm going to talk about. I'm still working, like I said, I'm working through grief myself with my kids, my mother's, oh, wait, today, what is today's date? Today is, oh, no wonder I was feeling up wonky yesterday. So yesterday was the 4th anniversary of my mother's death. And I didn't even recognize that until this morning, or until just now, really, because yesterday morning I was getting, here we go. I mean, this is a perfect example. I was getting ready. I was working in the morning at home on my business. I was getting ready to go out and drive for Lyft later in the afternoon. I wanted to get everything done. I'm so focused, and I kept feeling this overwhelming sensation of just like, I was floating, and then I was crying, and then I just like, oh, what is this? So stuff was coming up, and apparently now I know why. So it was my mother's anniversary death. And I was feeling that. And this is just wow, this is an aha moment for me. So it makes sense to me why this was going on. And on top of me grieving for, I miss my children. I haven't seen them in years. And as adults at this point, I mean, I talk to my son on Facebook, and that's beautiful, but I haven't seen my son in a year. So it gets challenging, especially as a mother or father, it doesn't matter, when you get older and you want to be with your kids and they are busy. I mean, they learn that from us too. So that's kind of challenging too. And then 2 days ago, I believe on Monday, was also the 2nd death anniversary of my former partner's ex-wife. And that was a challenging time for us. And for me, holding that space for them was like, I'd never experienced anything like that before. But what was so interesting is that 2 days before she died, I heard a message. I call them downloads. So I heard this message from my higher self, or source, or whatever we want to call that, that I need to focus on what grief is. And that was 2 years ago. And so I had plenty of opportunity over the last couple of years to grieve. So I understand what that is now. And just being in that environment and learning how to grieve, and learning how my partner's daughter was grieving, because she was young. She was 7 when this happened. And this was, she's still young, but this was 7 when this happened for her. And just watching, as long as we told her the truth about what was going on, I saw that it was easier for her to walk through it, because she could piece it together and understand it within herself. And we gave her that opportunity. And somehow we figured that out, or I had done some research and shared that with him. And it was the most incredible experience, even though we were walking through and experiencing that death. And so with children, it's important. It's important also in supporting somebody else, where because we don't know how to do it for ourselves. We don't know what to do or how to be with somebody else. And so with this other person, if someone's grieving, don't talk to them. Don't tell them that everything's going to be okay, because in that moment for them, it's not okay. And that's okay. And that's another thing. There's a book that Megan Devine wrote called "It's Okay to Not Be Okay." And it's true. It's just allowing that grief, sitting with that person and letting them just feel their feelings and let it out, because if they hold it in, it's just going to get worse. Let them let it out. Hold the space. Don't say anything unless they ask you a question. Just let them, or ask them, how can I be of service to you right now? How can I support you? How can I be a part of this process? And here's the thing, if you do something like that with somebody, you will feel your feelings coming up yourself. And what I suggest is that you allow that to happen, and you can cry with them, and that will actually multiply the beauty of the healing in that moment. And it's so important for us to heal, because we are so stressed. We're all grieving about something, especially since, well, I don't even want to say the pandemic. I mean, it's been longer than that, because we've never been able to truly understand what grief is. So we've never been able to truly understand how to grieve. And that's some of the information I want to start to bring out here. And as I walk through this myself, I want to share what this means for people. It's a spiritual experience. It's an emotional experience. It's a mental experience. It's a physical experience. It's a healing experience. And when you do this for yourself, this is self-love. You are treating yourself with love and allowing yourself to be able to bring yourself to a place where you can release this and feel lighter, and not feel so stuck in your life or your gut or your emotions or whatever else is going on for you. And please, I just want you to hear these things and open your mind. Planting a seed, that's just all I'm doing right now, is planting a seed, but consider this, feel it, know that, look, if I can do this, I mean, I've just processed all of this stuff, and it's been a life changer for me. And I know that grieving was a huge part of this. And so I just want you to know that as you go through your healing journey, as you understand yourself more and more, know that you are the most important person in this life, because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. I tell this story, you've heard this story over and over again, about putting your air mask on. If you fly, you put the air mask on your face first, so you can take care of your breathing before you take care of anybody else. It's the same thing. So I hope that this has opened some questions or understandings or whatever into your mind, your heart, your soul. And I have also started a meetup group called The Right to Heal, WRITE. So it's all about journaling your way through grief. And I am going to do this both in person in South Florida and virtually. So I will start, once I see how this and I start piecing it together, I can get this up virtually probably after the new year. I want to see, there's just so much going on, as you know. And I just want to offer this. If you go on Meetup and you look up The Right to Heal, you will find me. And if you just join the group, and then I will be posting, or yeah, if you just join the group, I'll be posting these meetups as we go. And it's just a form of self-love. It is a form of finding the truth of who you are through grief, and being able to grieve the things that you've never been able to grieve before, and releasing. Remember, you feel lighter, you'll be able to handle things in your life more, or your other option is to stuff it all down and just feel heavy, 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 because that is exactly what grief will do for you if you don't take a look at it now and begin this journey. So it's not, this is just something, it's just something that it's almost like a gift in your life that you get to receive, and you get to take in, and you get to do. So I hope all of that made sense. If you have any questions on any of this stuff, please let me know. I want to be able to get this out there and just start helping people walk through this, because I know personally it's something that will help. And there are different types of grief. So depending on where you're at in grief, or if you even know you're in grief or recognize it, there are questions that can be answered in that, in deciding what direction to go in, because I do have uh, uh, other options to share as well, to help you get through it. So I think that's it. I want to thank you so much for being here and supporting me in this, in my journey and your journey. And I hope we get to meet sometime. So I best wishes with the holiday season, whatever you're doing, and I just want to sign off with peace. Thank you for coming along with me on this journey. More to come. Peace.